Opening up. Here we go. Woohoo! Ready to roll. Here we go. We already have quite a few people. Everybody's super excited, I could tell. Matter of fact, I saw that.
Who's ready to rumble? Katie's on today. Get ready, folks. Inspiration train.
Look at there.
Who can tell I just had some espresso? Oh,
I'm thinking that.
Anyway, hi Jen. Hi Jen.
How's everyone doing?
Carolyn, how you doing? Louise, Linda, good to see you.
Good to see you too. We missed you at ComUAV.
Oh, thank you. I miss you guys too. I miss flying at nighttime. I miss. You can really fly, Kim. I mean, that's the stamp of approval if Linda says that. I'm always training people, so when you're always training people, you don't necessarily hear stuff like that, right? Well, I guess you do. So.
Well, it was a fantastic event, and it was so good to see everybody in person. And hey, Jim, didn't I hear something about now you're off to New York or something?
Yeah, we're running around. So I'm actually not leaving this week. Things are kind of being fluid, is a good way to put it.
Isn't that so typical of the drone industry, right? So
Yes.
I saw Kim, our Kim players here, because we do have a lot of Kims and Kimberlys in this group. I saw that you are going to be in New York coming up. You had posted in our Women in Drones members perk page.
Yep, I'm going to be in New York for a week, so I just put it out there. You know, I put it out there, and it was kind of wild to put it out there because I'm like, should I or shouldn't I? And I'm like, I'm just going to go for it. But, a lot of women will contact me from New York and they're like, hey, can I get some lessons, blah, blah, blah. So I put it out there. But I'd also like to have a drone hangout if anybody wanted to do that. I'll be there next weekend. I'll be in Saugerties, New York. And then I also want to announce, if you know anybody that wants to get their Part 107 fast and wants to have hands-on interactive experience, Master Your Drone is having a Part 107 class. Starting in October. It's in the evening. So, it's west on East Coast time. So if you're interested, let me know. If you've been wanting to get your Part 107, we help you get it fast. So
Awesome. So all kinds of stuff happening in the industry, and it's super exciting that coming off of ComUAV, it's like, wow, there was so much excitement, so much happening in the industry that it's still riding that wave right now. So it's very exciting. And now everybody's made connections and things are just starting to roll. It's kind of nice to see that, and feels really good, So
yeah, it was like, there's so many people out there too, right? I mean, it like doubled in size.
yes,
Yes, it did.
That's good news for all of us in the drone industry.
Yeah,
Yes.
there were 100 more vendors at this one than there were at the last one.
Wow.
Yeah. The room was full of exhibitors. It was great.
Yes. And I want to do a big shout out to Jennifer Pigeon, who just unmiked. SMG just rocked it.
Always.
Oh my God.
Thank you.
did So incredible. And I know
It was definitely a
hard work.
team effort. Definitely a team effort.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right, Jen?
That's right. That's right.
Have you recovered,
Indeed.
Jennifer, after all of the work that you did?
Not quite yet. I still have a truck full of gear that I need to unload, and I just couldn't bear to look at it this weekend, so I just left it there. So I still have a truck to unload.
Awesome.
Sometimes that's happened.
Yep, we'll get there.
Yeah.
So,
Fortunately, the heat has come down, so that's good.
Yes,
No.
that'll make it a lot easier. My goodness.
but there was, like I said, you did a fantastic job. There was air conditioned tents. There was the misters in the other tent. It was fantastic. You did a great job.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that certainly did help because we did hit 114 degrees on demo day. The day that we were setting up the day before, it was actually 117 out there, and we did not have a misting tent, and we did not have an AC tent. So that was pretty painful. We were pretty burnt out by the time we even got to the actual trade show. But It's
That's
all
a
good.
great point too. People just don't understand, that's, it's not for the faint at heart, people, it's the, like, it's the, you have the actual demo, you have the actual lesson or whatever that it is, but it's all the setup and
That's right.
take down. It's, it's not like 2 hours. It's actually maybe 14 hours.
You got it.
Planning, all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah. So it was
But I'm
just,
glad it was enjoyed and everyone, had a good time out in the demos and
Nice.
at the show for that matter.
yes. Yes.
You know,
see
it
a lot
almost
of new
seemed to me,
faces. Oh, go ahead, Jim.
sorry, I said it almost seemed to me that it was just too busy. We all had so many things to do. We only
It's
got a
true.
couple seconds here, there, and everything. And I couldn't even break out to any of the sessions outside. So maybe next time we'll be able to spend a few more days.
I agree. And that's something I want to bring to the DivCom board, just because I do feel like it's a little rushed and I don't know that, us closing at 3 p.m. on the day 2 is the best thing because people were leaving at noon. So
Mhm.
I am going to propose that they, have a full 2 days. So at least it goes to the end on day 2. And that way on that evening, we might have an opportunity to do another networking thing because yes, I'm with Jim. I wasn't able to get away from the booth very much. And each of my evenings were taken up with events. So it would be great to have a little bit more breathing room for networking.
Well, I think that just goes on the heels of the success of it because it was so big and was such a phenomenal event. It does need to expand, right?
There you go. I like that.
There we go. So, all right. Well, I just want to say hello to everybody. And I have a couple of quick announcements because now it's time, commercial UAVs over and now it's time to segue in a new direction. And so I want to remind you that right back in Las Vegas is now DJI Airworks, right? That's coming up. And so I'm going to post a opportunity to win a ticket through Women in Drones. I'm going to put that link in there for you. And so today's the deadline if you wanted to try to win that ticket. And then I also want to let you know that there's a Women in Drones members only opportunity to talk drones. It's just coming up on September 15th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And it's if you have drone questions, it's via Zoom. Come in, ask your questions and just talk. So I'm going to put that link in there. And then one more, man, there's so much happening, right? One more thing, I want to remind you that Sony and Hollywood Drones has that amazing boot camp coming up. And so I'm going to put a link in there for that. That's coming up November 4th and 5th. So all kinds of awesome stuff happening. Let me just post all that really quick like for you. That way you can check it all out. Boom, there it goes. So with that, we are super excited for our spotlight speaker today. Man, this is so cool. So we have Major Katie Cook. She is the first female pilot to perform with the U.S. Navy Blue Angels. Ah, yes. Okay, so I have to say, I have been bragging about this all week at Commercial UAV. So she served in the active duty Marine Corps as a KC-130 pilot for 12 years and accumulating, are you ready for this? Over 1,400 flight hours, 400 of which are in combat. She transitioned to the USMC Reserves and is now the Senior Director of Sales Strategy for Salesforce Global Public Sector. In this role, she leads as a global sales strategy team, providing marketing insights that drive Salesforce B2G and the segment and growth priorities for power with sales teams, forecasting, planning, and budgetary process. She has 3 children and is married to another Blue Angel alumni. I love that part, right? That's so cool. So we are super excited to have her here. She's an inspirational speaker. And Katie, thank you so much for joining us and coming and sharing with us. I'm going to make you spotlight for everyone.
Hey, Desi.
Yeah.
I was watching. Katie has a plumber at her house. I was on site, so she's coming on now, and she
Okay.
had to move outside. So
Okay.
she was just off for a moment. There you go.
Okay. Well, good news. She's back. So what I need to do is make you co-host again.
I am so sorry. I am so,
Oh, that's life.
oh my goodness. Yes.
Good thing your biography was long enough because you had plenty of time to transition. Like we didn't even miss you because there's just so many accomplishments. And then to top it off, you have 3 kids. So I hail the queen. I hail the queen.
I know.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much. I apologize. Yes, as my dad, who's on here, explained, we are converting one of our attics to my office finally, because I've been working out of my bedroom, and the plumber to turn off our natural gas upstairs, and they're hammering and it's super loud. So I apologize. It was terrible timing. But thank you for bearing with me. And if you guys are ready, I'm ready to jump right in. Are you guys ready?
We are
yeah.
ready. We cannot wait.
Awesome. Of course. Well, you know, I thank you so much for having me, first of all. You know, it's funny. I've been, you know, on the Today Show, Fox and Friends, even The Bachelor. I've given speeches, you know, hundreds of times, and I still get nervous every time I speak. And it doesn't help when my computer shuts me off and kicks me out of the Zoom room right before I start talking. But it is so nice to be surrounded by like-minded women and allies who have a passion for aviation and see and recognize the importance of female representation in a male-dominated environment. Now, a couple of disclaimers before I kind of jump right in here. Every story that I'm going to share today is my own. Every opinion that I share is my own. I can't make any claims, and I don't make any claims to represent the Marine Corps, the Navy, DOD, Blue Angels, Salesforce, or anything like that. You just have me today, so I hope it meets your expectations. But I kind of have to put that caveat in there so I don't get sued. but thank you. So, okay. So getting down to it, what is my goal today? What is our goal today? What do I hope you walk away with after the next kind of 20 minutes, and then we'll open it up for questions. So the title of this this talk is Motivation, Minutia, and Mistakes. And I'm going to speak about these 3 factors and how I feel they are critical to success. As was mentioned kind of in my bio, I was the first female pilot to fly with the Blue Angels. Specifically, I flew Fat Albert, which is our large C-130 that's excuse me, not only used for logistical support for the team, but we also do our own aerial demonstration at you know, kind of 75 different show sites throughout the country in a single year. So we get around a lot. Most kids really like us because we're not as loud as the jets, and our show's about 10 minutes long, which for those of you who have children know that that's like a standard 5-year-old attention span, right? So they tend to be our target audience there. Additionally, now in my civilian world career, I work for a company called Salesforce, which has been the #1 CRM company for the last 8 years and is the fastest growing enterprise software company ever. So needless to say, being on the Blues and working for Salesforce has exposed me to some of the most successful people in the world. And I've consistently seen these factors of motivation, minutia, and mistakes, both in my life and the lives of other high performing individuals. And I'm going to show you how these factors can be applied, not just they can be applied, you know, across any profession, not just in the military. And you can think of these factors as like a mushroom in Super Mario, where you eat it, you internalize it, and you level up into Big Mario, right? So we'll start with motivation. So the definition of motivation is the reason or reasons one has for acting or behaving in a particular way. For the purposes of this discussion, what is it that makes your employees, or in my previous life, my Marines, continue to come to work hard, and achieve results? What is it that keeps them from quitting and finding work elsewhere? Now, when I was a young girl, I remember thinking that adults only got jobs because they wanted to make money. And they put all this money in a giant vault and they swam in it like Scrooge McDuck. Now, some of you have to remember Scrooge McDuck, right? They had the best opening theme song ever. Life is like a hurricane here in Duckburg. Race cars, lasers, airplanes. It's a Duckler. So for those of you that know the song, now it's going to be stuck in your head for the rest of the day. For those of you who don't, go YouTube it. It's awesome. You can work out to it. It's fun. Make a TikTok dance or whatever the kids are doing these days. But yeah, so now it's stuck in your head. So you're welcome. But anyways, I was under the impression that money or financial gain was the only motivation behind even getting a job. Now, don't get me wrong. There are situations where this may be the case. However, especially in the military, you rarely hear someone say that they join for the money, right? So in my life, I was really inspired by my paternal grandfather, Bucky, is what I refer to him as Bucky. So Bucky's family, he was one of the first generation immigrant from Sweden. His family literally came here. His parents literally came here with nothing. They you know, settled in the United States, and they, through my grandfather, who served a 20+ career in the military, literally took his family from nothing to upper middle class in just a few generations, 2 generations. And so he really instilled this idea in my life that we need to give back to a country that had given us so much. And so he really instilled this idea of service in me and my brother and our cousins. And, you know, when I was growing up, I didn't know if I wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer, police officer, fireman. I even considered the nunnery at one point, but I wanted to have children and they tend to frown upon that. So I ultimately landed on the military as my life path and my way to serve this country that had quite literally let my family live the American dream. And so, oh gosh, now there's a wasp coming at me. See, everything is going wrong today, and I apologize, but I'm allergic to stinging things. So anyways, so he instilled this idea of service to me and my family, and that's ultimately what led me to this path of serving in the military. And so why am I telling you all this? Because successful people are motivated by something greater than themselves. Now, I want to be clear here. There is a stark difference between, you know, those that get a job to, you know, support their family, and those that just want to make money. Having a cause or a motivation that's bigger than oneself, whether that's love of country, serving your faith, providing for your family, or having extra income to give back to the community, all of these things help tie someone into the community around them. The same can be said for, you know, businesses at large. If the company you're working for example, supports disaster relief, leveraging drone technology, that is a motivation someone can feed off of. It gives you personal satisfaction and a connection to the community. It gives you a reason to keep coming to work and keep pushing forward. At Salesforce, our company was founded on the 1-1-1 model, where we give 1% of our company's equity, 1% of our company's products, and 1% of our employees' time to nonprofits or causes in our community. It's these type of initiatives that keep people tied into the community and give them something to work for. And it helps breed those character building traits of altruism, humanitarianism, and benevolence. And ultimately, I have found that people, but happy people, are those who have found work that fulfills them both spiritually and emotionally. So finding that motivation, finding that driver to keep teams pushing, especially in the face of obstacles or setbacks, is really key. And it's especially important on cross-functional teams that lack a formal chain of command. How do you inspire someone who doesn't report to you to prioritize your project, for example? I would argue that finding a common motivation or explaining the community impact can be that driver or that uniting force. The mission of the Blue Angels is to showcase the teamwork and professionalism of the United States Navy and Marine Corps through flight demonstration and community outreach while inspiring a culture of excellence and service to country. So I know that's a bit of a mouthful, right? And I used to have it memorized. I don't anymore. I had to let that little nugget go away to fill my brain with other things. But while it is a mouthful, what it isn't is a superficial motivation like fly a good show, get 35,000 Instagram followers. Instead, the motivation comes from representing every man and woman serving our country in harm's way and inspiring others to strive for excellence. So when you are on day 90 of not seeing your family and traveling the country, the team could stay united around our foundational motivation. Because again, successful people and successful teams are motivated by something greater than themselves. So we'll jump to the next M, minutia. So another thing that I believe has made me successful is my attention to detail, or in keeping with the M alliteration here, minutia. So I'm sure some of you have heard of this cool phenomenon in the ocean called a rogue wave. Rogue waves are unusually large, unexpected, and suddenly appearing surface waves that can be extremely dangerous, even to large ships such as ocean liners. Rogue waves are rare, unpredictable, and may appear suddenly or without warning, and can impact with tremendous force. While research into these waves is still ongoing, many scientists agree that rogue waves are a result of several smaller surface waves meeting together in phase to create this giant force. So why am I giving you an oceanography lesson? Because even in your professional life, small ripples build into big waves. So I'll give you some examples. In the Blue Angels and in the armed services in general, the little stuff is what stands between mission accomplishment and possibly losing your life. Our jets fly 18 inches apart. I flew my C-130 with a 139-foot wingspan at 40 feet above the ground. There's not any room for error. But on top of that, this attention to detail is what sets an outstanding Marine apart from a mediocre Marine. To me, if someone comes in with shined boots, a haircut, nice uniform, their paperwork is formatted correctly all the time, their emails are professional with no spelling errors, and they are on time and focused. To me, that person's tied together. They are so good at their job that they can handle and excel at all of this other stuff. And some people might think, that's silly, but to others, they look polished and professional. And I'm not saying that every guy or girl at Women in Drones needs to go out and get a high and tight like the Marines. But what I am saying is that those that get their work done on time, show up to meetings, format things correctly, they project responsibility, reliability, focus, and dedication. And as a leader, when I see a Marine like this, I want to promote them. I want to continue to give them more responsibility because they show that they've got this current thing on lock and they're ready for a challenge. So I'll tell you a quick story about my career and my career progression and how I got to where I am today talking to you guys. So I went to the Naval Academy, which takes you about 4 years to get through. And then I went to grad school, which took another year. And then I went to flight school, which took me about 2 years to get through. So when I finally reached my very first squadron, it had been a very long path to get there. And this was right in the middle of the war in Afghanistan. So, little did I know it was going to last 20 years. But, when I was I was like, I don't want to miss it. I want to get there. I want to serve my country. I want to protect those Marines on the ground. And so I was what we refer to as a meat eater. When I finally got out of flight school and finally got to my first squadron, I was like, you know what? I am so happy to be here. I am going to march into my CO's office and I'm going to tell him that I want to lead Marines. So the way that a Marine Corps squadron is set up is what we refer to as downstairs or maintenance has all of our enlisted men generally in it. So they are the people who work on the power line or people who work on airframes or people who work on our emergency systems or whatever. And as an officer, you can lead each one of those shops. You could lead up to like 50 Marines. And that's what I wanted to do. The other side of it is you could go up to safety or you could go to operations, which has very few enlisted men and it's very officer heavy. So you don't get a lot of leadership there. And so since it had taken me so long to finally get to my squadron, I was like, you know what? When I meet my CO, I'm going to tell him I want to go to maintenance. So I show up and I march in there and, Lieutenant Johnson at the time walks in and before I could even say anything, the CO goes, well, you know what? I think it would be really great if we had a friendly female face when someone checks into the squadron. So I'm going to make you the adjutant. And so for those of you that don't speak military, adjutant is just another way to say secretary. And so while they are very important, and I'm not diminishing that role at all, that's not why I joined the military, right? I wanted to lead Marines, and now I was going to be doing papers and making coffee and getting dry cleaning. And so to say that I was pissed was an understatement, right? I had waited so long to finally get here, and I wanted to lead Marines, and my CO picked me for this role solely because of my gender, not because of, my accomplishments. If he had said like, oh, because I was published at 22, he'd say, oh, you're published, you're great with writing, that's why I want you to be an adjutant. It would have been a little bit easier pill to swallow. Instead, it was because I want a friendly female face. Little did he know that I have RBF, for those of you that know what that stands for. But so it was not a friendly face. But anyways, so fast forward 6 months. Now I'm like, okay, I put in my time as the adjutant. I'm gonna ask to go downstairs and be lead a maintenance shop. And we used to have these things called family readiness officers, which were civilians that were attached to our squadron, and they acted as a liaison between the families and the Marines that were deployed. And unfortunately, our family readiness officer, or FRO for short, ended up writing checks to herself from squadron funds and got fired. And so if for those of you that have ever worked in this military space will know that it takes forever to hire civilians that work for military leaders. There's a lot of red tape with that. And so in the interim, my CO was like, we need to find someone who can fill this role because it's really important. And, you know, they plan all the parties and the squadron events. And so since the majority of the spouses are women, Katie, how about you go fill that role in? And so now, instead of being able to go lead Marines, I was now filling this role as a family readiness officer, where I planned the Christmas party, I planned the homecomings, I planned the Easter egg hunt. So I went from being a secretary to a glorified party planner. And again, I knew that he put me in that role because I was a woman, not because of my capabilities. And again, to say that I was pissed was an understatement. I was real mad now, right? Because I was like, when am I going to get my shot, right? So I will tell you, though, I threw myself a pity party for probably about 10 minutes. And then I was like, you know what? If I'm going to get this job, I'm going to bloom where I'm planted, right? My mom used to always say that to me. And so I'll be damned if that ice cream social didn't have like 10 flavors of ice cream. That bounce house was in place like 2 hours ahead of time. I knocked all of that stuff out of play. I didn't get a fake Santa with a pillow in there. I got a really old fat guy to play Santa, right? I was going authentic all the way through. These kids were going to think he came down here from the North Pole. And so fast forward another 6 months, and the way that a C-130 squadron deploys is not as a whole squadron. We don't go 15 planes like you may have seen, you know, on Top Gun or some of the other movies that you watch. We go in detachments of four planes. And so there was a detachment pushing out to go to Afghanistan. I was not slated to deploy, which I was extremely disappointed in. I had gone years hearing about this mythical fleet and these deployments, and I wasn't going to do what I was trying to do, which was, you know, support those Marines on the ground in combat. And to be able to deploy, you generally take about 6 months to do what we refer to as workup. So what you're doing is you're practicing all of the mission sets that you might be doing overseas, but in a friendly environment before you're in a hostile environment. So that's giving gas or dropping flares or whatever it is. And it usually takes about 6 months to get ready for that deployment. And so 6 weeks prior to this detachment that was going to Afghanistan was pushing out, one of the pilots popped with a heart murmur and couldn't go. And so now they're like, oh no, we're short a pilot. How are we going to find somebody who can do 6 months worth of work in 6 weeks and be ready to go? Without missing a beat, my CO said, get Katie to do it. Because I had proven through my role as an adjutant and as this glorified party planner that I was extremely organized. No task was beneath me, that I had this attention to detail that could help me be able to do 6 months of work within a 6 week time frame. And so I ended up going on that deployment. I got enough flight hours that I upgraded to aircraft commander about 8 months faster than any of my peers. I became an aircraft commander. I deployed again right away and became I led the evacuation of the embassy out of South Sudan in 2014. And then I applied to be a Blue Angel and was selected. And so I wouldn't even be speaking to you today, really, if I hadn't figured out how to make the best dang cup of coffee when I was an adjutant, right? And so all of those attentions to details really, you know, built my story and my reputation all the way along. And that's how I ended up kind of where I'm at today. And so let's see here. Sorry, I lost my place. So I could have sat on my butt, right? I could have sat on my laurel and not done anything, but I ultimately tried to make the best out of a bad situation, or not even bad, but not ideal situation. And I wanted to show my managers that I could handle so much more, and eventually it paid off. Now, the responsibility also sits with the manager to recognize talent. And so I'll tell you a quicker story. I know I said quick story before and it was not quick, but this one will be quicker. But Marine Lance Corporal Drew Lockyer. So when I was in Afghanistan, I was on the C-130 variant of that was referred to as the Harvest Hawk. So we shot Hellfire and Griffin missiles, did a fair amount of close air support while we were over there. In fact, my one airplane employed more than all other fixed wing assets combined in RC Southwest, which is the Helmand province, if you've heard of that on the news. So we got a lot of work done, very good work out there. And part of that is the missions would last 13 hours, because when you're shooting missiles at things, you want to make sure you're shooting at the right thing. And so it generally takes quite a while to make sure that you have positive identification. And so sometimes those days would get long and really boring, and you would get to know those people on your crew. And one of those people I got to know was Marine Lance Corporal Drew Lockyer. And he was one of the most intelligent people I had ever met. We would talk about politics or history or Star Wars or whatever. And this kid was just very well spoken. And I was like, why is he only a Lance Corporal? Like, what? I don't understand. He has all of his professional qualifications. Why is he kind of leveled out? And so I was not in his formal chain of command, but I kind of dug into it. And he said, you know what? I was trying for the longest time and nobody noticed. So now, and I could just sit on my laurel and no one's going to notice anyways, and I'm going to do a lot less work. And so that obviously is not a great attitude to have. And so I kind of took him under my wing and I was like, you know what? Tomorrow, how about you come with your boots shined? And the next day, how about you come with your haircut? I encouraged him to do his professional military education while we were over there. And before we left, he was promoted to corporal. Then we got home. Within a year, he's promoted to sergeant. He ended up getting out of the military and went to UNC Wilmington, where he got all A's. And he just recently graduated from law school at Drexel. And so I'm not saying at all that I had anything to do with that. But this idea of minutia and applying it to your own life and recognizing it in others is critical to success. Because in Drew's case, I noticed he wasn't shining his boots. I noticed he wasn't getting his haircut, but that he was very, very smart. So when the little things start dropping off, there's a red flag there as a leader that you need to dig into that type of stuff. And so again, these small, seemingly insignificant details can build your reputation and open doors. Because again, as we learned in our oceanography lesson earlier, small ripples make big waves. Okay, so down to the last M, and then we'll open it up for questions. So all of us have heard that quote by George Santayana, that those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And so that's what I mean when I'm looking at this M for mistakes. So let's dig into that a little bit from a personal point of view. One thing that I feel speaks the loudest about someone's character is how they handle failure. Even in the Blue Angels, no one is perfect, but that doesn't mean we don't continue to strive for it every day. After every flight, we would have a 2-hour debrief to discuss what we did wrong. And that's the key here, what we did wrong. Self-reporting failures or mistakes require detailed introspection. Everyone wants to believe they're awesome. However, you'll never actually be awesome until you begin to acknowledge the things that maybe you could do better. I always tell people kind of the same phrase when they ask if I have recommendations to young people who want to become Blue Angels. And that is, calm seas don't make a skilled sailor. And what I mean by that is it's not the easy times in your life that impact you as a person. It's the tough times, the rough seas that shape you as a person. If you can walk away from every situation, whether it's positive or a negative experience, and learn something, you're just one step closer to becoming that person and that leader that you want to be. And it doesn't just stop with your mistakes. My mother, when I was growing up, especially as a teenager, would lecture me on, I made this mistake at your age, don't do the same as me. And obviously I was a teenage girl, so I made the mistakes anyways because my mom knew nothing back then, right? But as I get older, I see the point. If your peers make mistakes, or even if they have successes, take learning points away from their experiences. And the same goes for managers and bosses. All of us have had those bosses that were just terrors, or maybe they were lazy, or maybe they did all their leadership via email instead of picking up the phone and walking down the hallway for a face-to-face. Or on the flip side, maybe you had a leader you really respected. Take those positive and negative things and use them to shape your own leadership style. So I was watching a video online of Sarah Blakely. I'm not sure if any of you know her, but she's the founder of Spanx. I've had 3 children, so at this point I might as well invest in Spanx with how many I have now to keep it all in there. But she was discussing her childhood, and every night at dinner, her father would ask her what she failed at that day. And she would say, well, I didn't make the soccer team, or I got picked last for dodgeball. And her parents, particularly her father, would celebrate the fact that she failed, because at least she put herself out there and tried. So tied with this idea of learning from your mistakes is the idea of not being paralyzed by the fear of failing or making a mistake that you don't try. So next time they ask for volunteers to lead a project and you're scared, do it. Take those opportunities, because you'll never succeed unless you try. And if you fail, well, then you just learn something for the next time. The same thing happened to me when I was applying for the Blue Angels. I was very, very junior. For the most part, everyone who was on the team was a 04 or a lieutenant commander or a major in the Marine Corps. And I was a very junior captain, but I just happened to have all the flight hours because I deployed so much. And so I could have waited another year, but I threw my name in the hat, and luckily I was selected for the team. But I could have very much just kind of poo-pooed myself and said, no, don't try it. And I took a risk and I put it out there, and it paid off. And so even for those that appear confident, it's very easy to second guess yourself on, should I even put my name in the hat for this job or this promotion or go for this opportunity? I don't think I'm qualified. You'll never know unless you try. And the worst thing that happens is you learn from that mistake, and you try again, you pick yourself up. So everything can be looked at as a learning experience. So for the managers in the room, it's really up to you to breed the work environment or trust with your team where open discussion can occur, where people aren't hiding their failures or aren't scared to talk about their shortcomings, right? And so if you can breed this environment where people come and say, hey, I messed this up, or hey, I did really great at this, or talking to this customer, this is the best way to approach it. You're inspiring this environment of collaboration, of trust, of great morale, where people are going to support you. And you can all learn from each other's mistakes and triumphs if you are opening up that dialogue within your team. And so I'll tell you a quick story from my life. So many of you know mental health is a big issue in the military. PTSD, suicide rates are very, very high within active duty, as well as our veteran population. And I had 2 children on active duty, and I had a third once I transitioned to the reserve. And after the birth of my second child, I had pretty severe postpartum depression. I sought help. I started taking meds. They got me through the really bad times, and I came out the other side happier than ever, and my relationship with my son and my children is great. But the idea of sharing this vulnerability with my Marines at the time was really scary. I was, the only woman. I was leading 151 Marines at the time, and I was already, quote unquote, the weaker sex. So what would my Marines think of me, right? If I couldn't even have a baby without, needing help, right? And so that was really scary to me, and I viewed it as a shortcoming in myself. But I felt like maybe by sharing my story, it could help others. And so the military has biannual suicide prevention training, where we talk about resources people have and signs to recognize in others. And I shared my story, that I sought help for myself, and that I came out the other side. No later than 2 days, no less than 2 days later, I had 4 people in my office thanking me for sharing my story and that they were going to mental health and seeking help themselves. And so again, I don't know if I had anything to do with that, but they told me that they knew I wasn't going to judge them as their leader. They trusted me to not perceive this as a weakness, to instead see the courage they had to go and seek help so that they could come to school could come to work as their most authentic self and their most healthy self. Because at the time I was struggling, I wasn't giving my family the best version of me, and I wasn't even giving my Marines the best version of me. And so being able to seek help was what ultimately improved the whole situation all around. So I will conclude the prepared remarks by saying that these 3 themes of motivation, minutia, and mistakes are not solely reserved for your professional success. I use them every day in my personal life as well. So maybe your motivation to be a great mom is because you want to give your children the support you didn't. Maybe you want to be really good at remembering birthdays and anniversaries, and because remembering the small stuff brings joy to your family and friends. And maybe you made some mistakes with some friendships and didn't acknowledge someone's importance before they pass. And now you want to be able to tell all your friends that you care about them and you love them so you don't make that same mistake. So all of these experiences can help shape you as a better friend, a better spouse, a better child, a better parent, and ultimately a better leader. So thank you. Those are the prepared remarks. And I saw a ton of the chat blowing up. I'm sorry that I can't talk and read at the same time. I can fly and read and fly and talk. I just talk and read is exceeding me. So I'll go through some of the questions that might be in there. Or Kim, if you want to take it from here, I'm an open book. So happy to answer everyone's questions.
It's a lot of feedback on just, your inspiration and your sharing. And I really appreciate, the mental health aspect of it, because that's not something that's talked about, and in leadership especially. So that's really powerful. I've been through a really rough beginning of the year, and I'm on a mastermind on Fridays and Friday mornings. And one of the women on there, high level professional, she said, yeah, I went and got, therapy, and it's the best thing I ever did. And it just hit me. Like you said, I'm like, I think I require that. And it literally, like, it's been the best thing, because it's just an opportunity to unpack all the stuff that you're trying to get done and to just unpack and have clarity. And I feel like as you're saying that with the mental health thing, it is, your mind just gets all jumbled, and we just need an opportunity to unpack. So that, and the courage to do that. My dad had 27 years in the Navy. So I was a Navy brat. I moved 17 times in 18 years. So I mean, just how hard the military used to be on stuff like that. My mom was an alcoholic. She could never get help because my dad was an officer and nobody could find out. Tried to commit suicide. Nobody could find out. So I really resonate with that, and your courage. I mean, and the points that you said, your inspiration. I mean, it's just powerful. Thank you so much for sharing. And let's encourage Carrie. What do you guys have to say to Katie? Any questions, any feedback, any takeaways?
Amazing.
Yeah.
And are you available for public speaking to other organizations too?
Yes, I have a website. It's katieanncook.com, and spelled ANN. And on there, if you want me to speak at other organizations, you can just fill in the little form and it'll come to me and my husband. We started a little small, it's funny, we call it a female veteran-owned business. It's just me and him. But but yes, we started. But yes, katieanncook.com. So happy to help.
Awesome. I put the link in the chat for everyone if you'd like to check that out. There has been so much conversation going through the chat. Everyone is just so inspired by it. And so we're just, I think, all sitting here in awe with the presentation, right? Bill, go
Desi?
ahead.
Yeah, hey, Katie, thanks again. I've heard this so many times, and you do such a great job with it. It's inspiring still to me. And but I think one of the points, as we had prepared for this, was to talk a little bit, and you've alluded to it with the Marine Corps, and I don't want to put, Salesforce on the spot or anything like that, but I find the way that you found Salesforce and that 111 that you talk about, and the interpretation of diversity in Salesforce and the inclusion of women in particular is really incredible to me. Could you describe sort of your journey in finding and learning about Salesforce and how you feel it is succeeding in those areas?
Yeah, sure. So actually, when I was transitioning out of the military, I literally Googled top places to work in the country. And so I started going down that list and was interested in, why are these places the top places to work? Is it because they have free lunches on Friday, or is it because they have great medical benefits? What is it? What makes people want to work here? And when I dug into Salesforce, and they do have the 111 model, but we also have our foundational characteristics, our great characteristics, and trust, customer success. And there's like 6 of them that I can't think of off the top of my head because you put me on the spot, Dad. Thanks, but no, I'm kidding. But all of these characteristics really spoke to me, that they have very similar values to what the Marine Corps has. And so as I was looking for like-minded people, I wanted people that had the same foundational values that I had, and I felt like this company had that. And in referring to diversity, Salesforce has recognized that it may not be the most perfect place when it came to compensation equality. So they funded a study to look at compensation equality, and then those that they found were not equal, they immediately corrected, whether that was with RSUs or with base pay, which was great. They've started initiatives. The most recent one they announced was to increase the population of women and non-binary individuals to 50% within our company, so that women are represented in the same amount as men are, 50-50. And so they're also doing the same with initiatives for underrepresented minorities, Black employees. They want the number of VPs and above for Black employees to increase 50% over the next couple of years. And so they've really looked at diversity as not a check in the block, but as a force multiplier, as we say in the Marine Corps, right? And so having that diversity of thought from all different types of backgrounds will only strengthen any organization, whether that's military or Salesforce. And so I'm really proud to be part of, this company. And, I'm not a spokesperson for them in this capacity here, but I just love it so much that I can't say anything but positive things.
Awesome, phenomenal. So you made a statement earlier. Well, you made many great ones, but you said bloom where you are planted. That is fantastic, because as we're going through our journey of life, we aren't exactly where we may want to be, but you still are in it to win it where you are. Can you elaborate more and give some maybe advice and tips in that direction?
For sure. So, Greg, I see you're in the Salesforce ecosystem. Great to have you. But I would say, in terms of bloom where you're planted, your reputation never stops, right? Just because you're in a place that you don't fully enjoy or is not maybe ideal where you're at, you're still building that reputation, and you don't know who you're going to come across or where your next opportunity is going to come from a lot of times. And so if you're just sitting on your laurel and like, I'm just wasting time here trying to find the next best thing and not putting your best foot forward and your best effort with things, then you may miss out on an opportunity because someone doesn't see what you truly are or what your true potential is. And so that's why I always try to approach even things that I am really super not passionate about. I try to approach it with all of my skills. I try to, and in the instance that I'm in maybe a job that I'm not super passionate about, I try to supplement that with maybe outside activities, right? Find that motivation that I talked about. Maybe it's not in this role specifically right now, so I'm going to go volunteer for the Boy Scouts, or I'm going to go coach T-ball, or I'm going to go volunteer on the weekends at the veterans homelessness center. And so, I mean, or I want to get more involved with my church. I want to spend more time with my kids. Whatever the motivation is, find out what it is. If right now you can't figure out what it is in your in your professional life, supplement it with those personal passions, right? Try to focus on those maybe to get you through the hard days. And then just put your best effort as you can in there. And it's completely justifiable and encouraged to look for something that makes you passionate in your professional life. But in the meantime, I mean, don't burn bridges, right? Burning bridges is not really the right way to go, because if you do, then you don't know what opportunities you're cutting off from yourself. Obviously, if you're in an abusive or terribly mentally unhealthy situation, you need to get the heck out of there as fast as possible, right? But I would say try to put your best foot forward at any opportunity, even if it's not ideal.
Awesome advice. Awesome. So, okay, I am going to ask a question that's completely random, off topic from the inspirational side. So I'm in San Diego and we have the Miramar Air Show coming up. Curious if you're going to be there.
Oh, unfortunately, I'm not going to be there. I loved that show because it was so Marine Corps focused. And if you didn't know, that the Blue Angels is a Navy team, a U.S. Navy Blue Angels, and there's only about a handful of Marines on the Blue Angels. And so when we got to go to Miramar, we were back in our element. We were back around Marines, and so we absolutely love the Miramar show. They have a really great, what we refer to as a MAGTF demo. So you'll see people jumping out of airplanes, you'll see tanks, you'll see our amphibious vehicles, you'll see a giant wall of fire. And so I absolutely love that show. It was one of my favorite. I do remember, so one of the tricks that we did with the airplane is you do like a 30-degree nose down landing, and you pull up right at the end. You land, and then you go on the brake so hard that you do a wheelie. So you pop the nose wheel off the ground in Fat Albert, and then you keep going. Well, I hit the brake so hard at Miramar that I actually blew a tire on the runway. And so we had to like evacuate everybody that was on there, and then we had to like do the sad like head down limp like over to the parking spot. And I was so embarrassed that I did it, but the tire was old. To my credit, it was an older tire, and we were getting ready to replace it after the show, but I replaced it earlier than that. So
Awesome.
What a Top Gun. What a Top Gun. You go, girl. Pop that tire.
That is,
Thank you.
Going all in. I love it.
yeah,
Thank
and we
you.
love the stories that you share.
Oh, thank you.
It guides everyone, gives us direction and inspiration for we can do it, and that's usually Kim's kind of motto is that inspirational side. And so it's fantastic. We love that you're sharing those stories. Bill has got to be a very, very proud dad. And so he's shared a few things into our chat. Does anybody have any questions or anything that you would like to reach out and ask? Like I said, I did put her website into our chat. You definitely want to save the chat today. And so if you had any questions that you'd like to ask, we're getting near the end here. And so I just want to make sure that if you had any questions, you had time to reach out.
Katie, have you ever flown a drone? Let's get down to it.
So,
Come on.
so I have not flown a drone, but I have some drone stories. One, I was in Afghanistan, and one of the ways that we would do close air support is we would be in about a 5-mile orbit, and then it was a left-handed orbit, and then you would shoot obviously inside that circle that you were orbiting. And we had a Pred get caught in an updraft and flew right through our orbit, like right in front of us. And so obviously that is not good. Those are very large drones and could take out a big airplane like that. So that was one of my drone stories. And then the other one was I've actually been quite involved in learning about, part 101, part 107, even our drone operators, military operators license, because I ran a small airfield in Bogue, North Carolina. And it's right near Emerald Isle, if you've ever heard of that. And we had little drones that people would buy at Walmart and take real estate pictures, and they would encroach on our airspace. And so I was always out there like fussing at people, or if somebody wanted to come and fly their drone within our airspace, I had to do all of that coordination, verify their licenses. And so I was really involved with preventing you guys from flying in my airspace. but I really enjoyed learning about it, and it was kind of, you know, near, I mean, drones have been around for a while, but it was kind of near the time when it was starting to take off and get a lot bigger in the commercial space. And so it was cool to kind of see how it was growing, and how the military needs to work with civilian drone operators, and how even someone who runs an airfield needs to work with drone operators. So yeah, it was really neat.
Notice how she says little drones, because she's used to seeing those M9 Reapers and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, she's talking about all the drones that we love, right? The Phantom 4s and the Inspires and the Mavic Pros. Those are little drones. We have been snapped by Katie, man.
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it like that. That was not.
I love it. I love it. It's great.
I was not. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it
No,
like that.
Katie,
We love it.
no. There's an S in SUAS for a reason.
Yes.
That's right. You're right. That's right. That's right. Thank you, Jim. That's right. No, we're not offended. We love it. But because we don't get that privy to see the big ones go, the big literally guns go. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, I remember being in Afghanistan, and you know, depending on what the target was, you had to have multiple cameras on it. And occasionally, you know, we would be in what's referred to as the stack, where they would have, you know, a helicopter, then a Harrier, then a Pred, then us.
Wow.
And we would all be looking at the same target. And then, you know, afterwards, after we would employ and blow up the bad guy or the bad thing, we would have to get tapes from everybody to make sure that we did everything properly when we were debriefing. And we'd be talking to the pilots of the Preds or the Reapers, and they would be like, "Oh yeah, we'll get it to you. We're in California, so we're on Pacific time." And we're like, "We're getting shot at every day in Afghanistan, and you're over in California just rubbing it in that you're gonna send us the tapes, you know, when you wake up on California time." So we used to give them crap all the time, but definitely appreciate what you all do. The importance of drones cannot be understated as we move forward, especially when you see, and speaking from a military perspective, when you see these robust denial, in-depth air denial systems, drones are going to change the way that we fight in the future. And they're going to revolutionize the way that retail works. We see that with Amazon now. It's only going to expand. And so you guys are on the forefront of that, which I think is amazing. I also love that, looking out in this crowd, that not only is it diverse gender-wise, and you have several allies here, but even generationally, it's diverse. You have very young people and more experienced people. And so I think that's amazing that, you know, there are people who are, you know, maybe in the autumn part of their professional career, and they're still going after these new technologies, which is phenomenal. You know, I think that's amazing. So this organization is opening doors for all different types of people, which is amazing. And so thank you so much for letting me have the opportunity to be here and speak to you today.
Well, we definitely thank you for coming. Look there. Yeah. Come on, everybody. Oh my gosh. We thank you so much. It has been fantastic, very inspirational. Look forward to seeing you in the future and just following your webpage that you have there. Thank you so much. So we are at the top of the hour, so we do want to wrap it up, be thoughtful of everybody's time. But I do want to remind everybody, definitely save the chat. There's some good information, plus Katie's website's in there. And then this will be edited, thank you, Johnny, and put up onto our website so you can watch it again, right? So,
You can watch yourself, Katie. Find out what all that, yeah, you can watch yourself.
Oh, yeah, I need to do that introspection after this one, trying to get stung by a bee and disconnecting at the beginning.
You did
So,
great.
thank you.
Thank you so much. And we'll see everybody next week. And have a good, safe week. Have fun flying, everybody.
Thanks so much, Katie. You're the best. Thank you.
Hi, thank you.
Great day.
Bye.
That kind of wraps it up.